Welcome to the evening of Python coding. Um, this time, Mason Egger will give us a talk about, or actually a demo about MKDocs. He's an expert in documentation systems, and he's going to show us how to use MKDocs, but also asking questions about other documentation systems. We're going to try to keep the demo short. If you have questions, please do ask. We'll record those. If you cannot, if you cannot ask questions online by unmuting yourself, put them on the chat and I'll repeat those. Without much ado, Mason, take over the screen, press the present button, and
Okay, can you see my screen, Jacob?
yeah, I can see your screen and I can see everyone else on the other side, and you can go ahead and start the presentation, and I'm
Awesome.
going to mute myself.
I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger so that way everyone can see my terminal. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Mason Egger, and I'm a developer advocate at DigitalOcean. Today we're going to be talking about MKDocs, which is a very simplistic and very minimal version of what's known as a static site generator. So there's multiple different types of documentation tools. Documentation tools such as Sphinx are tools that can potentially scrape your Python code and generate API documentation out of them. Whereas MKDocs is more of like a static site generator where you can use it to write Markdown and generate web pages essentially. So without further ado, I'm just going to kind of go ahead and just do the quick little setup. So basically, I created a virtual environment. That's not it. Source /dot virtual environments, make docs, bin activate. And then I'm going to just go ahead and pip install make docs into my current directory. Shouldn't take too terribly long. This will get the very minimal version of it. There we go. Cool. Now, if we just run the make docs command, you can see that there's very few commands here. There's new, serve, build, and deploy. So I can create a new project. I can serve the project, which is how I can live edit and live view my site. Build will actually generate all of the files necessary, all of the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and create it for me. And then GitHub deploy or GH deploy will deploy it to GitHub pages. So what we're going to do real quick is we're just going to do an MKDocs new, and we're going to call it evening of code. And once we've done that, we have an evening of code directory. Ignore the advanced MKDocs directory. That's for a little bit later. If we change directories inside this evening of code, we will get two things. We will get a docs directory that contains essentially just an index.markdown file, and we will get a mkdocs.yaml. So if I open makedocs.yaml, it's very minimal. It just has a site name and it tells me what it is. If I open up the index file inside of docs, we will see the basic hello world for MKDocs that basically shows you just how to use the project in general, and then what the current project layout is. So if we just want to see what basically the hello world of this looks like, we can run make docs serve. And now if I go to my my browser and I go to localhost 8000, I have a site. We're up and running. We already have a static site ready. If I leave this running and I come back over here, which I'm going to have to close that out. Do I have Biobu installed? I do. Ah, crap. Okay. Cool. And then I'm going to have to do that one more time because I created an SSH agent every time I create a new terminal. No, I don't want to do that. Go away. So if we leave this one running, MKDocs serve. So for those of you that don't know, Biobu is basically just a really fancy screen wrapper. It lets me have multiple terminals within the same window. So if I open up docs and index.markdown, I can just change stuff. Hello, evening of code. I can delete this stuff if I don't want it. Waiting on my terminal to stop messing up. That's not what I want. Go away. It's actually going to let me. I seem to have borked it. Okay. We're just going to open up a second tab. Something happened with my screen. Cool. Anyways, MKDocs serve. We'll get it running. And then if I, again, MKDocs. I open this up and I edit this again. Edit anyway. For some reason my vim command died, and we just say, hello, evening of code. And we close that. If we come back over here, it will automatically live update it for us. So that is one of the nice things about it, is that we can write all of our markdown files and essentially just open up a separate terminal and leave this running, and it will live reload for us every time. Now, if we want to add a couple of other things to it, I'm actually going to just go into the. I'm going to close this one real quick, and I'm going to go into the advanced one. So that's the basic MakeDocs. The simple bare bones hello world. It's one of my favorite tools because, as you saw, the time to hello world is literally about 30 seconds. Now I have done a lot with MakeDocs in my career. And we're just going to do this real quick while I go through it. And I've added a lot of plugins. So since MakeDocs is completely written in Python, you can extend it in any way, shape, or form that you want with Python. Inside of our requirements file, we actually use PyMdown extensions, which is the Python Markdown extensions library, and we use the MakeDocs material theme. So the default theme for MakeDocs, as we saw, it's not going to show up. Oh, if I don't refresh it, it's this basic theme. This is just the default theme. There are multiple themes you can use. MakeDocs has this theme installed by default and Read the Docs theme installed by default. But the PyMdown or the MakeDocs material theme, I personally like a whole lot better. And we're waiting on that to still go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Docs, and we're going to look at real quick a much more advanced version of MakeDocs. So you can add a whole bunch of things: site description, site author, URL, what repos these are at, because there will be a link in the top that will allow you to go straight to the website. You can change the theme to material, and you can change the primary colors or whatever colors you want. But then you can create these nav bars where I'm going to have this home and this markdown add-ons, and these are going to be two little navigation bars that you will see in the URL once this is done. This is done. So we should be able to go into Docs and run MakeDocs serve. If I go back to localhost, you can see now I have a slightly different theme. Like the Markdown MakeDocs theme is different, and now I have these. I have a navigation bar over here. So if I leave that running, and I come back over here, and let's just say I don't want to call this add-ons. I want to call this cool stuff. And I go back to this, it is automatically live updated. So this allows me to create a really nice and easy nav system. Another thing that I really like about the MakeDocs layout is everything is basically just directory layout. So you can create directories, and then you create other markdown files, and as long as you link them together, it automatically works. I will make sure that I provide a link to this file because it was not necessarily easy to learn how to use all of these different markdown extensions, and I will make sure that I provide those for everyone, as long as with some of the custom JavaScript that had to be inputted. So this is really the more advanced, I would say a little bit more of the more advanced stuff. And this one doesn't even work anymore, so that's hilarious. I probably broke it again. I am constantly fighting because the Markdown library keeps updating, and they keep breaking this. I'm normally able to use flowcharts and sequence diagrams, and it will actually create them for me. But obviously that didn't work tonight because they've changed it since I last installed it. So I think if you watch the video link that I have to my PyCon 2020 talk, it will show that actually works. And then I'm going to have to update my personal GitHub repo with this later to fix it. But it allows you to do other things like progress bars. You can do task lists. With simple Markdown, you can do detail panes where you can expand panes and keep them open and just add all sorts of UI elements, all done with Markdown, by the way. You don't have to know any JavaScript or any CSS. I personally am a very, very, very bad web developer. I spend my time in the terminal all the time, and I do not. So I'm glad that somebody has done this for me because I'm bad at it. There's different emojis. There's syntax highlighting for different languages. This is using syntax highlighting for Python with a very simple Flask tutorial. It uses different keys. It creates magic links. If you link yourself to that, takes me directly to my GitHub account. That takes you directly to my Twitter. It does great stuff with GitHub. There's just a lot of things that happen with it. Creates a whole bunch of symbols. So there's just a lot to it. And I would say for most of the demo, that's probably a majority of the demo. So just to get started, though, if we just want to review really quickly before I'm done with the demo, you do an MKDocs new, and then you do a MakeDocs serve, and you can see what you have, and then you just write Markdown to your heart's content. And then, I do want to show one other thing. So whenever you're ready, you run MakeDocs build, and what that's going to do is that creates a site directory, which creates all of the HTML files. So if I wanted to host these somewhere, I forgot I was going to do this part of the demo. I can either do MakeDocs gh-deploy, and this isn't going to currently work for me right now because this is not set up as a Git repository. But if you did have this set up as a Git repository, you can actually. I might as well just. I'm not going to do that real quick. You could, if it's set up as a Git repository and you've pushed, this will push it up to the GitHub Pages version or GitHub Pages branch of that repository, and it will allow you to host this for free on your GitHub page. So if you want to be able to put your stuff out there, you can just host it really quickly there on your GitHub Pages site. This is where, yeah, what's up, Jacob?
So you do have you do have a Git repository with the demo. We actually published it on the evening of Python coding, so you just pull it out and you can use it.
Yes. Okay. Let me go ahead and get that one real quick.
Different, but
yeah, it'll look a little bit different, but you're right. I can still demo that. I just hadn't done. I did a whole brand new thing today whenever I did this. So yeah, I can pull down this GitHub repository. Come on. What is this called? Git clone. Okay. So if we go into the MakeDocs demo, we're going to just sample page, and then we're going to do a MakeDocs serve just so we make sure that it's running. There it is. So this is going to change again because that link doesn't exist. So this goes back to the original one that I sent y'all in my GitHub repository. So let's change it really quickly just to just so that we know that it actually is different. We're just going to delete. Welcome to MakeDocs Evening of Python Coding, just so it looks a little bit different. Because if you look at it on the website right now, it looks different. So if we go back to this, we see this giant evening of Python coding right there. And now if I run MakeDocs gh-deploy, I have to source my virtual environment. What did I call it? MakeDocs bin activate. So you just run MakeDocs GitHub deploy, and it's going to build all of the static site files, and then it's going to push it up, and then it tells you this is now currently available at this URL. So we're going to copy that. And now one thing that I've noticed about this is sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the GitHub pages to actually update. So if we go over here to the GitHub pages, you'll see that we actually did in fact create this branch. So what it does when you run the GH deploy, it creates a get gh-pages branch, and then it will push all of the static assets to this branch, and then it will be sorted. It will be stored there, and let me just evening of, yeah, there is an evening of Python coding in the HTML. So sometimes, there we go. So sometimes it takes a little bit for the GitHub pages to actually host it, but it's always your GitHub username .github.io/the repository. And that's how you host it for free on GitHub. Jacob, do you still want me to go through and show a quick just how to do it on Linux, and if you were to host this yourself?
Sure. It's like, and if someone has questions at this point, start asking them. We can go over the chat, but like, please do ask questions. Egbert, while people get the courage to ask questions, go ahead and show the other demo. You wanted to host it on DigitalOcean, correct?
Yes, we're just going to host it on DigitalOcean. We're going to host it on an Ubuntu 2004 server, just because I'm using DigitalOcean. These commands and this Linux stuff will run on any Linux Ubuntu 2004 server. It doesn't have to be hosted with us. Since this is going to be a small site, let's pick a small server. I randomly pick a region that seems close to me. I like New York 3. You can ignore most of this stuff. I have an SSH key that I have so I can get into the server to actually deploy it. And we're going to call my server MKDocs. And we're just going to go ahead and create it. So we give it about, I don't know, 50 seconds, a little bit less than a minute. It will create a server for us that we will be able to SSH into, and then we will host our site on there, assuming that we provision quickly. While we wait on server stuff, feel free to ask any questions if you have any. If not, I'm just going to keep going until there's a question. So now we're going to SSH into this IP address. Yes. And now what we're going to do is we're running it as root. The first thing we have to do is run an apt update and then apt install -y nginx. So apt update basically gets all of the repositories that have all of our the packages that we need to install. That's weird. For some reason, the first time I ran it, it missed nginx. Ubuntu, it does weird things. So while we're doing that, what we're going to do real quick is we're going to just create a host name in DNS. So we're going to do MKDocs over here. And what this will do is we'll be able to go to mkdocs.sammy-codes.com, and we'll be able to see our website. It's nicer than sending people your IP address. While we can get to almost any site on the internet via IP address, it's not necessarily the prettiest thing. This will also allow us to use, I should have installed it, use certbot to secure the site with a HTTPS. So that way we don't have to worry about unwanted actors sniffing our traffic. And now it's processing the trigger for ManDB. This one, I don't know what the manual database, I guess it has to download it from somewhere, but it takes forever to always run it. So if I go to that site now, mkdocs.sammy-codes.com, we're going to see the Hello Nginx site. So when we installed Nginx, it started the web server on our service, and now we have Nginx running. If I want to actually host my stuff, what I'm going to do here is this is where the, and we already did this, but I'll do it again. The MKDocs build, we're going to get all of those assets in this site directory. Then we're going to secure copy. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to just tar-cvf. I'm going to create a tarball so I don't have to worry about doing a recursive copy site/star. So that created basically a compressed format, kind of like a zip file if you're used to using Windows, but it created a nice tar file for us. Then I'm going to scp this site.tar at root at mkdocs.sammy-codes.com : means put it in my home directory. And it's going to copy that over there. So if I go back to this, I will see the site.tar here now. I'm going to move this to var www html directory. It's the magic directory that you just kind of learn once you're a sysadmin, where HTML sites are stored. What we're going to do is we're going to remove that index that Nginx stuff, and we're going to do tar-xvf site.tar. Now we have our site. We're actually going to move everything out of that into the current directory because we want it to be at the top level directory. If we left it inside of this site folder right here, we'd have to go to makedocs.sammy-codes.com/site to get to it. Now, if we just go over here and we refresh our page, we will see our site on a public hosting internet on your own domain. And then the last thing I'm going to show is certbot-nginx. Is it nginx-certbot?
I think
certbot.
it's --nginx.
That's the way you run it. Python. It's always something weird. Because it's like the package to actually
you're talking
install
about the
it.
package. Okay.
Yeah, because they don't Nginx, Python, Ubuntu.
I think it's just install certbot, isn't it?
So Python-certbot-nginx.
Right. Okay.
They actually split it out. They support Apache by good grief. That's what it is. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm really bad. Oh, look, I go and I literally find. I'm like literally 2 seconds from like doing this in Apache because. Oh, it's Python certbot-nginx. .04 Python 3. There it is. Because I forgot that 2004 has completely deprecated it. So now that we're done looking foolish, and this is my life. I make mistakes and I I mess stuff up and then I fix it and it works. Certbot devil-nginx-d, and we're going to do makedocs.sammy-codes.com. We're going to use my work address. We're going to agree to the terms of service. We're going to say no because I've already done that a million times. That's basically asking if we want to get a newsletter from them. I get enough of newsletters. And then this is the part that's really near and dear to my heart. I always say yes. It's 2020. People should be on HTTPS. There's no need for HTTP, especially for sites like this. So now, if I go back here, as you would see up here before, it said not secure. Once I refresh it, it's actually going to redirect it, and now our connection is secure, which just protects your users from unwanted sniffing and trafficking. And also, if you don't have your site secure with HTTPS, Google is actually, even in Chrome 85 now, they're going to start flagging all of these as insecure, and you will get deprioritized in search engine optimization. So if you don't start securing your sites with Nginx or with HTTPS, you're going to see you're going to just see your stuff not showing up in Google because Google is actively fighting against that. And that's all there is for the demo. So that's how you would host it on your own site using your own domain. If you don't want to spend $5 a month, host it on GitHub. Save yourself some money. But if you do really kind of want that personalized URL, or if you anticipate, you just want to learn how to do the DevOpsy stuff while you're doing all this and you want to use it as a teaching moment, do that as well. And that's all I have for the demo. I will take any questions if there are some.
Hey, Mason. This is Weston. I'm very new to coding. I just finished a boot camp along with my classmate, Eric Garcia, who's here as well. And I just have a question. So MakeDocs is a feature of DigitalOcean, and we can implement it if we have this service. Is that true, or am I wrong?
MakeDocs is an open source product that just allows you to create static sites. You do not have to use DigitalOcean in any way, shape, or form. If you want to use AWS, you want to use GCP, be my guest. This is a tool that is written in Python that just creates static assets for you. And that means that it creates sites that are not backed by a database. It's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the way it was back in the 90s. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
What's
How
up?
big are those files typically if you use them, and can you do very complex stuff like I know there's some Python libraries that add all sorts of graphics like holoviz. Sometimes they can be quite heavy. I use when I host those, they do create a static HTML file. So compared to when you use MKDocs, how big are your static HTML files typically?
So it is showing me that the entire site which is including CSS fonts. There's no images. There's a little bit of JavaScript. Is the tarball itself, which we did not compress, was 1.7 megabytes. So as you can see on the screen, the index.html was 7.4K. The 404 page was 5.1K. I think it's in. Yeah, all we had was an index.html. So I would say that's typical size. I mean, they are including a little bit of JavaScript and stuff, so it's a little bit bigger. But I'd say like 1.7 megs for a site is pretty. It could be smaller, but it's not terrible. And as to your question on doing advanced stuff, so I introduced this entire MakeDocs process. So my video, my PyCon talk is actually how you automate all of this deployment and stuff, where you just write and then all the deployment and stuff happens magically behind the scenes. I implemented this exact workflow at Verbo before I left, and all of the internal documentation for all of the internal cloud platform, basically how developers deploy their code on Verbo, all of the engineers, is written in this exact system. And they love it. The engineers absolutely love it because this allows you to keep all of your documentation is now in source code and it's tracked by Git. So you can much more easily version your documentation. So you know, when did somebody add this docs? When did we make this mistake? Or when did we add this feature? And you can go back and look at the Git commit history. At the same time, the developer doesn't have to break their workflow and go to like Confluence or Microsoft Word or wherever else the company is deciding to host some sort of wiki. And the developers love this. Internally at companies, they love having their documentation right next to the code. If the docs are right next to the code, it increases the chance of them getting updated by like tenfold.
Hey, Mason, this is Eric. Thanks for putting this together. Will this also generate HTML from restructured text RST files?
So MakeDocs is only it has the MK because it is known for being Markdown based. There may be a plugin that does restructured texts, but to my knowledge, this tool does not. There may be some restructured text to Markdown converters, or you may just want to look into Sphinx. Unfortunately, Sphinx is a much more complicated tool. I love it, but at the same time, I have found it to be. I've had programming languages easier to learn than Sphinx. It's a very complex tool. It does a lot. It has a very powerful ecosystem underneath it. But no, this currently MKDocs, to my knowledge, does not support restructured text.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless there are more questions, I think we're going to thank you and finish the recording. So, last chance for questions. Going once.
I just
had a.
Sorry, Jake. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, mine was really quick. Mason, that promo code you gave us for the DigitalOcean, I was just curious, does it have an expiration on it?
So once you have that code lasts forever. So you'll always be able to use it, but once you've created an account, you have 60 days from the time of sign up to use that $100 credit. After those 60 days, if you have resources that you have created, but you have not, you either have destroyed or you forgot about them, then you will begin to be charged for those resources.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mason, the only dependency for all of this is the MakeDocs pip install, right? It's the only dependency.
Yes, so I will also put, because I forgot. Yes, for the very simple one, it is. If you want to do all of the more advanced stuff, or adding all of the flair.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of Yeah, and in having a script to regenerate my documentation for Read the Docs, all I would need is standard
Yes.
MKDocs. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's just that, and if I know correctly, I can show this really quick if I can remember how to do it.
And while you're doing that, I can give a shout out for DigitalOcean because I use that and I love it.
Awesome. I'm glad that people use it. I love hearing about people that use it. I used it for. I don't want to use this one because I don't feel like figuring out how to do that right now. Let's go into the advanced one. And then what we're going to do, and it's either RTD or it's Read the Docs. So we're going to figure it out by running it, and if it breaks, it breaks. I could Google it, but honestly, at this point, it's quicker just for me to. There we go. So if I go back to my local host, MKDocs comes default with the Read the Docs theme. So that you don't even have to install that special theme. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And if you didn't see, because I know I blazed through that really fast. All you have to do is just change the theme to Read the Docs. It has a default one, but if you do theme : it's just a YAML file, and you add the Read the Docs theme, boom, automatically changes it. And then if you want to change your colors, because I like changing colors, you can do that. And I think that's all. That's all I have. Anybody have any other questions?
One last question before we sign up, unless someone else jumps in. What usually you will use MKDocs for compared to using other tools like Sphinx?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jacob. It's also in the talk, but I'll do it now. So I use Sphinx. Is what I use for what I call API documentation. So if you have like a Python library and you create the what is it called? The text blocks, whatever. Doc strings, that's what they're called. If you create doc strings in there with the triple Python quotation marks and all of that, you can tell Sphinx to scrape through all of that and generate documentation for that. It is brilliant for that. MKDocs cannot do that. So if you want to do it manually, you could. I highly don't recommend it. Don't do more work than other tools have solved for you. MKDocs is great when you need to create what we call long form documentation. If you need to create the main page of your product, like how to contribute, the contributors, what the project does, the quick start guides, the readmes, the sample stuff, all of those kind of things where it's a lot more like a very curated blog of different articles on what your project is. That's where I use MKDocs. Whenever I do write a Python library that I need to be able to have like an API, a public-facing API documentation that are software or SDK that people need to be able to see. Unfortunately, right now, I think your only option is Sphinx. You can use, I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called Docs or something. There is something in the standard library for creating it, but it's really limited. Sphinx honestly just takes those standard libraries and really expands upon them. So, yes.
Well, thank you. Unless someone else has more questions, we're going to try again. Questions going once, questions going twice. Okay, 3 times, no questions. I guess we're going to wrap up the recording, but first we want to thank you, and I suggest everyone who can clap, unmute yourself and clap. We'll get some echo, but it'll be fine. So,
yay, thank you.
Thanks, Mason.
I'm going to wrap up this recording. Thank you.